Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we will be talking about the symbolic frame in reference to organizational communication. I am Danny Prieto, and I am joined here by with my classmates Edgar Morales and Yara Lopez. And so, as mentioned, we'll be talking about the symbolic frame. And the literature from Bowman and Deal share that a symbol is something that stands for or suggests something else. It conveys socially constructed meanings beyond its intrinsic or obvious functional use. It can stimulate energy in moments of triumph and offer solace in times of tribulation. Now, when we talk about the frame overview, we'll be sharing this through the lens of a student's experience via this symbolic frame. But as she begins to understand the meaning of a symbolic frame, she understands it as described by Bowman and Deal, who share that organizations are cultures shaped by shared beliefs, values, rituals, stories, and symbols. And so this frame really emphasizes that leaders can create and sustain meaning by fostering traditions and reinforcing a shared sense of purpose and identity within the organization. According to Bowman and Deal, symbols are metaphoric expressions of psychic energy that later shape our thoughts, emotions, and actions.
Bowman and Deal's symbolic frame encourages us to view organizations as theaters where meaning is created through performances, symbols, and shared narratives. Rather than focusing solely on policies and procedures, the symbolic perspective asks us to consider who is performing, what are the messages that are being conveyed, and how are the audiences interpreting these performances. In this story, this experience, the university serves as a stage. Faculty, staff, administrators, students, and even ICE agents become the actors in this stage, actors whose actions shape unfolding drama. Each actor plays a role that communicates something about the institution's values and priorities. Bowman and Deal note that organizational life is carefully scripted with individuals expected to follow roles and norms. This perspective invites us to examine the difference between front stage and backstage behavior. Public statements could project safety, support, and inclusion, but private conversations could reveal uncertainty and also institutional constraints. So this symbolic frame, through the symbolic frame, the institution's response becomes a performance. Bowman and Deal argue that heroes and heroines bring organizational values to life. They're not always the leaders. It's often ordinary people who become the symbolic hero during moments of crisis. In this experience, the heroes could be the advisor who advocates, or the professor who shows up, who mobilizes support, or the other undocumented students sharing their stories, and students, organizing solidarity, peaceful protests. Their actions communicate the institution's values more powerfully than just a mission statement that is posted on their website. Through the symbolic frame, the key question becomes who rises to protect vulnerable students, and what does that actually reveal about what the institution truly stands for? In Culture in Action, when Bowman and Deal talk about culture, they're referring to the shared values and beliefs and assumptions that guide how people respond to challenges. Culture is not just something that is written in the mission statement, as I mentioned, it becomes visible through actual action. In this experience, we can see culture in action through emergency meetings, statements of solidarities from students, faculty, or staff, faculty flexibility, understanding the students wanting to take a stand, even immigrant support services that could come to campus, showing up and participating through those peaceful protests. And these actions provide an insight to how the institution responds when one of its students actually faces uncertainty and vulnerability.
Alrighty, now rituals. Rituals set the tone, norms, and reinforce values of a community. A ritual is a stateable purpose that can allude to more than what it says. Rituals come in all forms. They can be awards, traditions, celebrations, even vigils, prayer circles, student walkouts, town halls, or solidarity marches. Just think about the national response to gun violence. It has become almost a ritual to send thoughts and prayers after a shooting. After the student's arrest in the story, the community came together in solidarity, protested the injustice, and raised funds to bail out their fellow community member. These collective acts stand as rituals that not only serve a purpose, but also bring meaning to what happened and provide stability and comfort during times of uncertainty. Next, please. Now, stories are powerful accounts that can convey, reinforce, or even dismantle the narratives that define our identity as individuals, organizations, communities, and even as a world. Stories can also highlight positive values such as courage, kindness, compassion. Stories can make us happy, motivate us, provide comfort, or teach us difficult yet valuable lessons. Fairy tales, on the other hand, may not be based entirely on facts, but they communicate deeper cultural meanings. Take a look at this photo and consider the following questions. What do you see here? Do you see fear, family separation, or law and order? Who has the authority to tell stories? In this specific story about the student who's detained, who are the heroes? What will the losing side tell? And just to quote Lopez as cited in Bullman and Deal, sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive. Next.
In terms of critical race theory, it's important to interrogate this and not take it at face value. The symbolic frame helps us to understand meaning, ritual, and culture, but it can fall short in analyzing power, race, and structural oppression. So that brings up the question with this student situation. Who is disproportionately targeted? The student was following protocol, but was still detained. Would this have happened if it were a white immigrant who might be considered passing or flying under the radar versus a brown Latinx individual? The symbolic framework may also humanize the crisis without specifically naming the structures of white supremacy, xenophobia, and immigration policy that disproportionately criminalize Latinx and other immigrant communities of color. So then this brings up the question of stereotypes and how folks might be detained due to salient identities, including religious garb, phenotype, speaking a language other than English, or having an accent. And it makes one question, how does the law function differently across identities? Not only are we seeing it now with ICE detentions, but we've seen it previously via racial profiling, such as the use of stop and frisk in New York City, as an example. And so the symbolic frame reveals the performance of institutional values, but critical race theory reveals whether those values disrupt oppression or quietly sustain it. And so this story that we've shared from the perspective of the student, it is a true story. She's a nursing student attending a university in Connecticut who went to a routine hearing and was detained. So we've laid out the theater, the actors, audience, drama, culture, rituals, and stories related, but when applying critical race theory to the symbolic frame, it transforms it into a deeper structural critique. And so ultimately, organizations are more than policies and procedures. They're meaning-making systems shaped by stories, symbols, and rituals. In times of crisis, these elements come to the surface and reveal the deepest truths about an institution's values, culture, and identity. How an organization responds in these moments defines not only its present, but the story it will continue to tell about itself moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.